I hope today's video will help you understand in any scenario that you might ever run into how to figure out what's the best direction to get the smoothest cut, reduce sanding, not have tear out, and not have a catch. And so when you pet a dog, you want those hairs. If you think of the grain as individual hairs, you want those hairs to fold down. If I petted the dog this way, this hair would pop up, this hair would pop up, this hair would pop up. And so this is pretty easy to see when we're in board form. You could use any brush that's just around the house that maybe you've abused, but I used a cheap one. I cut it at an angle just so we can see this. These hairs on this brush would represent the grain fibers. And so we have the shorter fibers going up to the longer fibers. So the longer fibers are supporting the shorter fiber. This one's supporting this one's supporting this one. So I hope you understand that concept. It's pretty simple once you get it. But you know, if I have the board at this angle like this, I can cut up this way and I will get no catch. And the longer fibers support the shorter fiber that I'm cutting. Okay? Now, if I go the opposite way, if I went the opposite way, the chisel is going to catch. It's going to catch those fibers. And I'm not like trying to do this. It's almost impossible to go down without catching here. Whereas if I go this way, I can really shove it in hard. It's going to go fine if I go the right direction. Okay? So that's the concept. And we'll use this to help us when we go over to the bowls. Now, if you don't have a brush, you can make you a little cheater sheet out of a piece of cardboard. I did it on both sides, but I basically just have my wood grain going in this direction. This represents the piece of wood, and then that'll tell you which direction. Another way to look at it would be with a book. So if I take a book and I take the pages, okay, these pages, this page, now that I have it bent this way, this page is longer than this page, and that one's longer than this one. So we're going from shorter to longer in this direction. Okay, so if I take a chisel, I go that direction, I get no catch because the longer pages support the shorter pages. Whereas if I go the opposite way, you can see that I catch. I'm going to catch, continually catch, okay? And you're going to be cutting into the end grain because it's not supported. So whatever example helps you understand it, there you go. We're going to take our hand plane and cut with the grain from shortest fiber to longest. And that's pretty smooth. There's very little tear out. There's a little bit. Now out here at the end, even though we are going in the correct direction with fiber support, with the longest fiber supporting the shortest fiber, when you get out to the end here, there is no fiber out here to support your last few fibers. So that's why when you're turning a bowl or anything, you can still get tear out at the end, even if you're going the correct direction. So you want to take very light cuts when you get to the end like that where there's no support. Very light cuts, and use slicing type cuts with your tools. So now we're going to go against the grain in the wrong direction, where we're going to be cutting the longer fibers with no support because there's shorter fibers behind it. And we're going to see how it does. Oh, it's a lot harder to shove your hand plane because you're going against the grain. And there's some more tear out here and a little bit more tear out down here, quite a bit more. Like I said, you'll have that on the other way even if you go the right direction, but it's even worse in this direction because you're going against the grain. But that's a good example. Pet the dog this way, don't go this way. And if I took this and I cut it off this way at that angle, even though the grain's the same direction, I would want to then cut in this direction because this fiber's shorter than this one, and this one's shorter than this one. So you want to go from the shortest to the longest so that the longer fibers are always supporting the shorter fibers. That's the key to the whole concept. Now let's go over to the lathe and look at some examples there with spindle and bowl turning. Now with spindle work, you know, the tree is growing this way, right? The tree grew this way. And so the the grain is running this way, and it may run different, but it's pretty much running parallel with the bed of the lathe, and you put it end to end. Most of you probably know that. In spindle work, you can see if I make a cove down here like this, it's pretty easy to see which way the brush would need to go. So I take my brush, right? I put my brush over here. The grain, remember, the brush bristles are the grain. And this represents the grain. And so I put it in the same direction as the grain. I put it with the shape that I want. That is how it's going to cut better, right? So that's the direction I want to go. But when I get down here to this point, that changes, right? So now I put the brush with the bristles to go with the grain. That's how it's mounted on the lathe. And then for this to go down that way. So you wouldn't want to go up this way. Even out on the end, if you're cutting down like this on the end here, okay, you're still going to do the same thing. Put your bristles, there's your grain. You want to cut that way, right? Down that way. You wouldn't want to come in with your tool and cut up against this grain, because what's going to happen is it's going to be doing that type of thing as you come up. And you're going to get tear out, if not a catch, because you're cutting into the end grain. Now, if you don't want to spend the money on a brush, I took a piece of cardboard and I've got the red lines for the grain of the wood. So this is put in line with the grain of the wood. And I've got that labeled as the wood. And then this is labeled for the grain. And then you would go in the direction to where this fiber is supported by this one, this one by this one, this one by this one, this one by this one. Right? And if you like the book analogy better than the brush, my pages are bent that way to where the longest fiber or the longest grain part of the wood is at the bottom. And that's the way you would want to go. You wouldn't want to come uphill into these fibers. Okay, so normally in bowl turning, this is how we would mount it. It doesn't matter if this is the center of the tree or the outside edge of the tree, or this is the center of the tree or the outside edge of the tree. It's going to be oriented most of the time and with the grain running perpendicular, not parallel at least, with the bed of the lathe. Okay, so that's how the tree grew this way. Okay, and if we flip it around, we have end grain again. Side grain. So end grain, end grain, end grain. Okay? The other one. So that you want the fiber that you're cutting next to be longer than the one you just cut all the way. And so people say cut downhill, but here, that's what always confused me, because this isn't downhill. This to me seems like I'm going uphill. So that downhill, uphill is a little confusing. So really, I want you to remember to cut the longest fiber last. So shortest fiber, then the next longest, then the next longest. That's how you want to remember it. This is our foot of our bowl, and we're going to come up this way, like that. Then, I guess we should draw the bottom. So our bowl is going to come like this. You can see which way the grain is. The grain is coming this way. There's the wood. And so we would want to cut with that grain. Okay, and so this fiber is shorter than this one's shorter than this one's shorter than this one. Okay, that's normally how we would do it, but I would say if you want to make a hollow vessel or something, you're going to actually, sometimes you'll come up with a shape like this. Okay, and so here, I should probably draw this similar down here. So now you have, the grain's the same. It's the same straight grain. It's the same tree, right? Center of the tree or the edge of the tree, doesn't matter. It's you know, you can rotate that around, but you're turning it this way. And here's your hollow form. So here, the shortest fiber is down here, and you're cutting shorter to long, shorter to long. So you're going to cut from the bottom out to here. Now down here, you don't want to go down, right? You want to, because the shortest fiber is down here, shortest to longest to longer to longer to even longer to even longer. So it's supported this way, okay? So you're going to want to be going this way, going up on that part of the bowl. So it's the same tree, It's the same straight grain, but depending on what direction you are making the shape, see, here's the wood grain. You would want to go uphill right here, or up this slope, because you want to go from shorter to longer. So then you're going to get up here to a point, and I'm going to say, let me draw it with a marker so you can see it, but you're going to get to a point in here, right, where it either way, you're really kind of, it's like planing, it's like cutting the end of the board, right? It's end grain and the fibers are the same length. So if you do a shape that's like that, you're going to be in this area. It probably is not going to matter which direction you go, and you may be able to tinker with which one gives you a better finish. But here you would be going up this way, and here you would be going this way. And then in this area, you could go whichever way works the best for you to give you the best finish. And you may have to just try that whenever you're turning to see what does better. Take my gouge. I'm going to go from the bottom of the bowl here out to the rim, because the fiber I'm cutting here is shorter than the fiber I'm cutting here, and it's shorter than the fiber cutting here. So this fiber is supported by this one's supported by this one, this one's supported by this one. And so that's the direction that I'm going to want to go on the outside. On the inside, it's the opposite. This right here, here's the fibers. This is like end grain. So this is kind of like just cutting up here. So it probably wouldn't matter which direction right here, although you want to go in here because this is not supported on your way out that well. And you can run into that when you're coming on the outside here and you're cutting that final bit. You want to make this little cuts and go slow, because you can tear that out because it's not supported. You don't have a fiber supporting you right there. But when you're coming in from the outside in, I'm going to draw these grain, the fiber here. These aren't too much difference in length until you get down in here. Now we're really getting to see the difference in length. So this fiber is shorter than this one. So you want to cut this fiber before you cut this one because it's supported, then this one's longer, and then this one's longer. So this fiber's supported really good. If I went the other way, this fiber would not be supported until it got to here, right? It's not supported. This one not until it got to here. So this is going into the grain, and you don't want to do that. So you want to go from the outside in when you are doing a bowl that is mounted in this way, where the grain is running perpendicular or up and down on your lathe. So the tree, basically, if you mounted it to where the tree would be growing straight, right, from the bottom up to the rim on the outside. Now, this is the exact opposite when we do an end grain bowl, and I'm going to show you that also. Okay, I showed you earlier doing spindle work, and that's where you mount it with the grain between the centers of the lathe. And we can see that we go downhill, and that makes sense in spindle work, downhill. And it doesn't make sense to me in the bowl turning. We can also do a bowl when the wood is mounted exactly like this. So here you would have the tree mounted. The tree would be running parallel, or would have grown parallel with the bed here, right? So I've got a round tree. Okay, this is just a cutout so we can see the grains. The grain's running this way. Okay, now if I wanted to hollow this out, okay, so if I wanted to come in here with a shape, okay, something like this. Hopefully I can get all the different grains this way. Okay, and I want to hollow this out. It's going to be the exact opposite of what a bowl mounted perpendicular to the grain would be. Because here, I'm going to want to go from the center and out this way, okay? So if we look at our grain, if we look at our grain here, I have my grain running this way, okay? And so the longer grain is towards the outside. And I could show you with a pencil there. This grain is shorter than this one's shorter than this one, this one's shorter than this one. So that's why on an end grain hollowing out, you're going to, from the inside, you're going to want to start at the center and work your way out, because your grain's supported as you're going this direction. Until you get to where, if you did do something that was shaped like this, till you get to this point, and now your grain supported going this way, okay? Because this one is shorter than this one, and that's shorter than this one. So this is supported by that one. This one's supported by that one. So there's a point here where you would go this way, okay? And you just need to pay attention to that. If you made this flare out, it would be from the center out the whole way. So if you did like a normal bowl, it would be from the center out the whole way. On the outside, remember the other bowl, we came from the foot and came up, but let's just do the shape here. The longer fibers are here, so we're going to go from the outside in. This fiber is supported by this fiber by this fiber, this fiber by this fiber. So we're going to want to go that way on the outside of an end grain bowl, and this way pretty much on the inside of an end grain bowl. So this is exactly opposite of if you turned it the other way. So if your bowl is oriented where the end grain is going this way, it's exactly opposite. You go from the center out, and you go from the outside in, or from the rim to the foot, I should say, and from the center to the rim. It's exactly opposite of if your bowl was this way, where the grain's running this way, where you're going to go from the rim in and the foot out. So I hope today's video was helpful to understand why we go a certain direction whenever we are cutting different things on the wood lathe. And hope that you understand that there's only one thing that's consistent there, and it's that you go from the shortest to the longer fiber so that you have grain support the whole way. That's what I really want to drive home, because the orientation of the wood is going to change, whether you're doing spindle work, whether you're doing end grain hollowing work, whether you are doing face plate or face grain bowl turning, which is the most common bowl turning. And so this principle will help you if you ever get confused about why something happened, because inevitably you're going to get a catch, you're going to get tear out, and you're going to want to figure out, why am I getting tear out? And I hope you can use this video to help you. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to Woodworking McDaniel Style.